Lisabi was a name whispered throughout the hills of Egbado land. Though the kingdom was vast, there were few as revered or feared as this mysterious figure who had risen from obscurity to shape the future of the land. Born to a modest family, Lisabi had spent his early years in quiet obscurity, learning the ways of the earth, the patterns of the rivers, and the hidden languages of the forests. His parents, farmers of humble means, had little to offer him except knowledge. From a young age, Lisabi understood that the power to control the land was in the hands of those who in it most intimately. His father had told him stories of the ancient warriors who could walk through the forest without making a sound, and of the great chiefs who could bend the weather to their will. Lisabi had listened closely, storing each tale in his mind like a hidden treasure, waiting for the day when they would serve him. As Lisabi grew older, he became increasingly aware of the injustices that plague its people. The Egbado land, though rich in culture and resources, was constantly under threat from external forces. The Oyo Empire, which controlled much of the region, extracted heavy tributes from the people, leaving them in poverty and fear. The farmers, traders, and artisans of Egbado were little more than pawns in a grand game of politics, their livelihoods constantly threatened by the whims of the empire. Even worse, the local chiefs who were supposed to protect their people had become corrupt, working in league with the Oyo overlords to maintain their own power. It was a betrayal that cut deeply into the hearts of the people, and Lisabi could feel the weight of it pressing on his own soul. He knew that something had to change, but he also knew that any challenge to the status quo would be met with fierce resistance. Lisabi's chance to act came in the form of a drought that struck the land during his 20th year. The rivers dried up, the crops withered in the fields, and the people began to starve. The chiefs, rather than rallying to help their people, used the disaster to their advantage, raising taxes and demanding more tribute from the already suffering populace. It was a moment of utter despair for the Egbado, and many began to lose hope that they would ever see a brighter future. But not Lisabi. He saw in the drought an opportunity to rally the people, to remind them of their strength and resilience. He began traveling from village to village, speaking to the farmers and traders, telling them that the time had come to rise up and take back what was rightfully theirs. At first they were hesitant, afraid of the power that the Oyo Empire and their chiefs wielded, but Lisabi was persuasive, and his words resonated with the pain they had endured for so long. The first to join Lisabi were the farmers, men and women who had nothing left to lose. With their livelihoods destroyed by the drought, they were ready to fight for a future in which their children might thrive. They gathered in secret, training in the ways of the ancient warriors that Lisabi had learned from his father's stories. Soon word of the rebellion began to spread, and others began to join their cause, traders who had been bankrupted by the empire's taxes, artisans whose skills had been reduced to mere survival, and even a few chiefs who had grown tired of living under the thumb of their Oyo overlords. It was a motley crew, but under Lisabi's leadership they became a force to be reckoned with, faced off against a small detachment of Oyo soldiers who had been sent to quell the unrest. The Oyo were well armed and well trained, but they had not counted on the sheer determination of the rebels. The battle was fierce, and for a time it seemed as though the rebels would be overwhelmed. But then, in the midst of the chaos, Lisabi stepped forward, his voice ringing out above the clash of steel and the cries of the wounded. For our ancestors, he shouted, and his men rallied around him, pushing the Oyo soldiers back and forcing them to retreat. And it was a small victory, but it ignited a spark of hope in the hearts of the Egbado people. They had seen that their oppressors were not invincible, that they could be defeated. And with each passing day, more and more people joined the rebellion, swelling its ranks and strengthening its resolve. So Lisabi's name became a rallying cry, a symbol of resistance and defiance against the empire. He knew that the road ahead would be long and dangerous, but for the first time in his life, he felt that victory was within reach. He could see it in the eyes of his people, hear it in their voices as they chanted his name, and he vowed that he would not rest until Egbado was free. As the rebellion spread, Lisabi's tactics became more sophisticated. He knew that they could not hope to defeat the Oyo Empire in a direct confrontation. Their forces were too vast, their resources too plentiful. Instead, Lisabi employed guerrilla warfare, striking at the empire's supply lines, ambushing their soldiers in the dead of night, and retreating into the safety of the forest before they could be captured. The Oyo were unaccustomed to this kind of warfare, and it left them frustrated and demoralized. Every victory, no matter how small, strengthened the resolve of the rebels and weakened the grip of the empire on Egbado land. As he sat by the fire, he saw a figure emerge from the shadows, cloaked in darkness but with eyes that burned like the sun. So the figure spoke to him, not with words, but with a voice that echoed in his mind. "Do you have come far?" the voice said, "but your journey is not yet complete. There is a greater power at work here, one that you cannot see, but that has been guiding your steps since the beginning." So the figure raised its hand, and Lisabi saw visions of the past, the present, and the future, of battles won and lost, of empires rising and falling, of the earth itself groaning under the weight of the struggle for power. When the vision ended, Lisabi was left with a profound sense of purpose. He realized that the rebellion was not just about freeing the Egbado from their oppressors. It was about something much larger, a fight for justice, for balance, for the very soul of the land. He knew that the road ahead would be even more difficult than he had imagined, but he also knew that he was not walking it alone. The ancestors were with him, and so were the gods.